Hey everyone, my name is John from Let's Talk, and today we're here to talk about the 2023 horror film, The Boogeyman. But before we dive into that, if you are a fan of movie reviews, 4K Blu-ray reviews, lists, and podcasts, we try and do them all here on the channel, and nothing helps the channel out more than by simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So The Boogeyman was directed by Rob Savage. It's based on the Stephen King short story that came out, I believe, in 1973. This movie stars Sophie Thatcher, Chris Messina, and Vivian Lyra Blair, who many people might remember from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. She was the young Leia, and people loved her performance in that show, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I thought she did a good job for her age, but then after watching this movie, that kid is going to be a great child actor. She does a phenomenal job in this movie. I was actually surprised at how well her performance was in this movie. I didn't expect it at all, but she really does handle herself very well, especially for her age. I believe she's only 11 years old. And really, all the performances in this movie, before we get into the plot, are pretty decent. They all play them kind of monotone, but there is a reason behind that, because this movie does follow around a man and his two daughters. They just experienced an unimaginable loss in the patriarch of their family, their mother, his wife. She tragically passed away in a car accident. And it's a month after it. They're still grieving. They're still trying to process this grief, learn to live with the grief, learn to overcome the grief, because that is a big part of this movie. That is the through line. That is the theme, overcoming grief and living with grief. And the character Will Harper, played by Chris Messina, who is the father of these two girls, he's a psychiatrist himself, but yet he's having a hard time overcoming these emotions. So he's still doing his job, and then one day, a man played by David Dismulchen, who always plays kind of characters like this, if you've seen The Dark Knight or The Suicide Squad, these broken men, these men are dealing with either very crazy mental illness or who've just been put through the ringer, that they are having a hard time living themselves. He stumbles into the office. He says he has to tell somebody something. He says that this monster killed his kids one by one, and that everyone thinks that he did it. Obviously, this makes Chris Messina's character very uncomfortable, and he heads out of the office, goes to call the cops to report this, and the man hangs himself while he's doing that. Now, we believe he hanged himself, but what we do find out is that there was an entity, or a boogeyman, has attached themselves now to this house because it feeds on grieving people. And then from this point on, we got ourselves a movie. And it's a pretty decent horror movie at that. It's not the greatest. It's not anything that's going to be something that you're going to probably remember in a day or two. But if you want to head out to the theaters and see this one, it's a fun horror movie. It's very well shot. The screenplay is pretty decent. I do have some questions about some of the characters, especially the characters surrounding this main family, like their friends or the people they see in school. Like, they write these characters just super mean and unrealistic. I mean, there are those classic unrealistic horror tropes in this. We got, characters running, tripping, making all the wrong decisions just because it's a horror movie. All that's here, all the way up through the very end of this movie. And for the director, Rob Savage, he has directed other movies like Host and Dashcam. Those are the movies he's most known for so far. And those are very much experimental horror movies. Host was using Zoom as its premise. A whole movie shot on Zoom. Dashcam, they're using a dash cam and playing around with the YouTube live feed. And now this movie is just a straightforward, generic horror movie. It feels like it would have came out in 2007. It doesn't feel like a 2023 horror movie, other than how it's shot, because visually it does look like modern horror movies that actually would come out on Hulu or Shudder, in my opinion, which makes sense because this movie was originally supposed to go directly to Hulu, but test screening said that it was good enough to be put in theaters, so 20th Century Studios decided to put it in theaters this weekend, up against Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse as counter programming. And you know what? In my Thursday night screening of it, it was a packed house, so the horror fans definitely came out. They didn't want to go see the animated movie, so they decided to come in here. And for the most part, they were having a good time. People were laughing at certain scenes. I don't think it was intentional, but they were cheering, and they clapped at the very end. So even if I didn't love this movie, it seemed like most of the horror fans were into it. People were having a good time, and you might have a good time too. So if you don't really want to go see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse this weekend, you want to go see something else, maybe you want to go head out and see this movie, I think you'll have a good enough time. I don't feel like you're going to waste your time, but me personally, I think this would have definitely been better released on Hulu like it was originally intended. This is something I feel you can watch on a weekday night, and I feel like you won't feel like you wasted your time with it. But going out to the theater and spending all that money, if it was up to me, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's a decent enough horror film. I think it's decently made. Everyone does their jobs pretty well. I just don't think it's anything special. If I was going to rate this on a score of 1 to 10, I would give this a 6 out of 10, right down the middle. Nothing special, something you're going to forget about in a couple days, but also, It's nothing offensive, nothing that I feel like is going to waste your time. But it's also Friday, guys, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. Every week I'm going to ask you guys 2 questions. All you have to do is answer one in the comment section below. As long as you do that, you come back to Monday's video, we put your name on a magic wheel, we spin that bad boy 2 times. The names that it lands on, the 2 names that it lands on are your 2 lucky winners, and they have their choice of the digital codes that you see on your screen before you today. And since The Boogeyman is a horror movie, I figured I'd ask you guys, what is your favorite horror movie in the last 10 years? So 2013 to 2023. That could be any horror movie. It doesn't have to have been released in theaters, on streaming, anything. You guys could just let me know. But I know not everybody is a fan of horror. So if you're not a fan of horror, I wanted to ask you guys, what movie are you looking forward to for the rest of the summer that's coming out, either in theaters or maybe on physical release? So are you excited for like Creepshow coming out on 4K in June? Or are you excited for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning coming out in July? Let me know in the comment section below. And as long as you answer one of those questions, make sure you do come back to Monday's video, whatever it is, and see if you won. And if you didn't win, we hope you guys keep playing, because I just have a lot of fun talking to you guys in the comment section about movies. I get so many great movie recommendations from you guys, and I do try and watch them all. I really do. Even movies that maybe I haven't seen in a while, I'll try and go and I add them to a list, and if I have some free time, I watch them, because I really just love talking movies with you guys, and you give me some great recommendations, and I really do appreciate that. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here with me on another episode of Let's Talk. Nothing helps the channel out more than just by simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And then after you're done doing all of that, why don't you head yourself into a haunted house, hopefully a real one, and then tell all those ghosts and your friends about us. We'll be seeing you around.